Why, hello there. I'm Sin. We are in the Book Nook, and today we're going to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of April. And we had a nice variety of horror, fantasy, sci-fi, weird ones, good stuff. So, the first one I read was We Do Not Part by Han Kang, and this book was so atmospheric and strange and eerie. It follows the main character and they get a phone call from their friend who's in the hospital. They go to see their friend and they have had their fingers severed off in a woodworking accident because their friend is a woodworker. And that friend is like, "Hey, I need you to go to my house because I'm afraid that my bird's gonna die or has died, and I need you to feed her and give her some water so that she doesn't die because I'm in the hospital." And so with her fingers severed, she's having this thing where they have to keep her fingers bleeding so that she can keep the tips of her fingers. So she has to have this like process for like the next 2 weeks so that the nerves don't die and that they can reconnect so that she can use her fingers again. All right, so her friend is like, okay, yeah, she doesn't really want to go, but she's going to do it because that's her friend. And there's a big snowstorm coming. She makes her way there, and when she gets there, strange stuff starts happening. The bird didn't make it. The next day, well, the bird is there. It's there and it's bopping around and it seems fine. And so she gives it some food and water and she's like, I thought I buried you last night under the tree out there, but okay. And then all of a sudden her friend shows up and she's like, oh, hey, you're here. And her fingers are fine. They are whole. There's no stitches in them. Yeah, that's weird. And so then they spend a bunch of time together and have all these conversations. And it's haunting and eerie, and it makes you question stuff about life and the afterlife. And it's pretty fantastic. And it is weird as heck. I really enjoyed it. And I do have a standalone review for that. If you want a little more info on that one, I can link that down below in the description. So after that one, we read House of Frank by Kay Sinclair, which is like a cozy fantasy. And it's a cozy fantasy that has to do with grief. So it follows the main character. Her sister had passed away, and she had promised her that she would take her to this House of Frank where they have this arboretum. You can go and like they plant your ashes and you become part of a tree, like a part of new life. And so she promised her sister she would take her ashes there, but she avoided it for like 2 years. And she's also a witch, mind you. So this is a fantasy. So everybody's kind of magical and quirky and weird. And so she goes to this House of Frank finally after avoiding this for a while, tells Frank what she wants to do. Frank offers her a room to stay and until she feels ready to go through the ceremony and all that. And she starts to meet the inhabitants of the house, which there's these two brothers that are cherubs, Morose and Mary. There is a few other witches there. One of the witches is like half gargoyle, half witch. And there's a ghost, and there's a bunch of just interesting characters. There's a dragon outside in the barn. Very magical. And each person that's staying in the house all has dealt with their grief differently. And a lot of them all seem to have trouble letting go of it as well. And so you get to know these characters and their stories. It's sweet, it's sad, it's heartfelt, it's emotional. And I thought it was a very like sweet and moving story. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. After that one, we read Juny by Aaron Crosby Eckstein. And this is a story that follows the life of Juny, and Juny is a slave, and she lives on a plantation. She had lost her sister. Her sister had passed away. I can't remember if it was a year or 2 years. She ends up seeing her sister's ghost one day after she goes to her sister's grave and takes this locket that was on this in this jar from her grave, and she sees her sister and she ends up talking to her sister, and her sister wants her to do these 3 tasks for her so that her spirit can be set free because she's kind of stuck in between right now to the land. And then you also have the story that Junie, she is the personal maid of the daughter of the house, and the daughter of the house is less horrible than other people and really likes her, but the daughter of the house is of that age to be married off. They are trying to hook her up with some rich dude who is a complete evil a-hole. The thing with this is if she ends up marrying him, Junie's gonna have to go away with the daughter and be her maid in this other state, like away from her family and everything she's known, and she doesn't really want that. And she thought like if she could get this necklace and sell it, then maybe the daughter wouldn't have to get married or whatever, which I don't think she really understood how much money this family would need. Oh yeah, because the dad is a big drunk and he's out gambling and spending all their money away faster than they can even make it. All right, so the sister wants to task her with 3 different things, and the sister wants Juny to be free. And Juny also wants to try and bring her family with her too. So it's a story of that, and it's emotional and sad and gripping, and it's strange and eerie and so many things. And I really enjoyed my time in the pages. Fantastic book. After that one, I read A Harvest of Hearts by Andrea Ames. And this follows the story of Floss Butcher. She lives in a little village, and there are these sorceresses that are like the most beautiful women ever. And they come into the village every once in a while. And what they do is they harvest slivers and pieces of people's hearts because they use it for magic. They use it to supposedly protect the kingdom, make sure that the people don't die in childbirth, the animals don't give birth to 2-headed cows, whatever. They say that's what they take it for. But when they take these pieces from these people, it seems to really hurt and harm them. And one day, a sorcerer comes to town, like a male sorcerer, that they didn't even know that there were male sorcerers, that they even existed. But one comes to town. Foss is curious. Foss is very plain. No one usually pays any attention to her. But when this male sorcerer is there, they lock eyes, and she feels a piece of her heart, or her heart snagged. And then he goes away. And when he goes away, it's like this crazy pain from being separated from him. So she's like, oh my God, I need to go and yell at this guy and get my freaking heart back. So she makes this journey, and she goes there, and she's like, she's fixing to put a hurt on someone, but she's not quite sure what to do because this is a powerful sorcerer or whatever. So she gets there, she gets in the house, and she goes and she finds the guy, and he's like in his like throne room. And this house is made of like this weird shiny like black glass type material or stone or something. And there's food all over the floor, so he's like a big super slob, and he's like, yeah, what do you want? And she doesn't even tell him what she's there. She's like, I'm here to be your housemaid. And he's like, okay, fine, the cat will show you where you need to go. And so the cat goes with her, starts to show her towards like the kitchen or wherever, I guess. And she's like, I wish you could talk. And the cat starts making some weird noises and all of a sudden starts talking. And she's like, oh, okay. And he's like, I've never talked before. I guess, you know, that there's a certain kind of magic. The house is part of the sorcerer and all this like weird stuff. And so she's like, if she's going to be the housekeeper, maybe she can try to sneak around and try to find out like maybe where he has her heart hidden and whatnot. But it also turns out that there's this weird rot that is getting into people whose hearts that are taken. And as Foss spends time in the city near where the castle is, like she meets these other people who are in different stages of like their hearts being taken, but some of them are starting to turn like moldy and grow moldy inside of them. But also the hearts that they have stored at the castle are also turning moldy and putrid, and they're not able to use them for their magic. So now the king is demanding more hearts, and they're starting to take more than they should. And it seems like there's ulterior motive and purpose behind this. And this guy's just doing this all, and it's all lies. It's not for the good of the kingdom. This guy's just a selfish a-hole. It is a fun, emotional, quirky, weird story. I love the talking cat. His name is Cornelius. Would I call it a cozy fantasy? I don't know, but it's a great standalone fantasy. All right, after that one, Green Teeth by Molly O'Neill. This is a cozy fantasy, but it's like a story about like an epic quest, and it's almost like a folk horror too. When you look it up, it's not marketed as folk horror, but I think it's kind of folk horror. There is this town, and there is a witch who lives in the town. Her name is Temperance, and the preacher of the town, who just came to town, he's new, has convinced everyone that Temperance is horrible, and they're throwing her all manacled up into the lake for her to die. Everyone has known her for a really long time. She's helped out with like a lot of things with ailments and their health and whatever else. But no more, because the preacher man says she's evil. So he throws her in this lake. And in this lake lives Jenny Greenteeth, which, contrary to popular belief, her teeth are white. They're very sharp, and there are a lot of them. They're not green teeth, but her skin is green, her hair is green. And she's kind of like a lake hag or something of that sort. She's magical, she's water fae. So she ends up, instead of eating the witch, she saves her. And when she saves her, she decides to help her. And the witch is like, I don't know why I didn't think of this before. I can just cast a spell, making everybody forget what's happened, this, that, and the other. I just need help with finding the ingredients. And so they do this, except for it turns out it seems like the preacher man is some sort of evil, malevolent force. And so when they do this spell, it gets pushed back towards them. The witch almost dies again, but Jenny Greenteeth saves her a second time. And then they end up setting off on an epic quest to go see the High Fae and see if there's a way to kill this evil, malevolent force that they now know is the Earl King. And it's a crazy story. I loved it. I have a standalone review for this with much more information on it. I'll link that down below as well. After that one, I read Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. Second book I've read by this author. I really love how she writes. It's very gripping and just pulls you right into the story. This story follows the main character, Zelu. And Zelu is disabled. She is in a wheelchair. She works for a university as an author and she teaches writing. And she's at her sister's wedding in Tobago. And while she's there, she finds out that she lost her job because there was this student who was a pretentious a-hole and he just wrote a bunch of crap that was a story that had no connection and was just garbage. And she asked him what he thought his story was about. And he was like, I don't know, you tell me. And then she just like had it and snapped and like gave it to him, made him cry. And the rest of the class was like, we're emotionally damaged. And so she got fired. But sometimes these things are a gift in disguise because once she got fired, she starts writing this story that is a sci-fi story called Rusted Robots, and she doesn't even like sci-fi, has never really written or been into it, but she starts writing the story. It ends up being a really amazing story. She sends it to this guy that she thinks is one of the most honest people that she's ever met. He tells her it's amazing. She sends it to her editor, and he's like, this is fantastic. People are going to love this. Yes. And this starts a whole thing where there's going to be a huge book deal. There's a movie rights have been sold and all that. And it's basically life-changing. So throughout the book, you have her story, and then you have chapters from Rusted Robots and how her story and that kind of intertwines. And it's so freaking good. The ending was fantastic. Like, if you like this author, you're going to like this book. I really think so. What a great author. I'm so late to the party on this one. I definitely want to keep reading Okorafor's books. They are fantastic. All right, so after that one, I read The In Between Bookstore by Edward Underhill. And this is a story about going back to your hometown when you hit some low points. So it follows the story of Darby, and he loses his job. He was working for a startup company, lived in New York City. When he loses his job, he's like, I am not going to be able to afford to live here. I don't know what to do in the meantime. I think I'm just going to go home and try to like figure it all out. And back home, there is a friend that he had from high school that was like his best friend ever, and they had a big falling out before they graduated and just like lost that friendship. So there's a lot of hurt there. There's a lot of things that Darby's gonna have to deal with when he goes back home. And he used to work at this bookstore called the In Between Bookstore. So he goes back home. And the first thing that happens is he runs into the guy that was his best friend, and he doesn't know that he's going to recognize him because now he is a he. And when his friend knew him when he was younger, he hadn't figured out who he was yet. He was still she at that point in time in high school. Like, he didn't really know what trans was, but his friend did recognize him. So they have a weird, awkward, like, reunion, and then he goes home and he sees his mom and talks to mom about stuff, and the mom is actually moving out of the house and gonna move to like a condo and whatnot. And he's now having to deal with that and starts talking about how he ran into his friend, and the mom's like, oh, yeah, he's gay now. Did you know that? And they're like, what? No. So interesting developments here on the front. The reason they had a whole falling out was because of some of this stuff. Like, they were never able to open up to each other. Wanted to, but was never able to tell Darby he was gay, and Darby didn't really know what trans was, so like had all these weird feelings about how to tell the friend, and it's about them reconnecting and rekindling their friendship. And then also Darby goes into the old bookstore that he used to work in. He goes back in time and he is there when he's younger. And so he wants to try to help himself to try and understand and feel not as alone and be more accepting of himself and like just try to, I don't know, like all the things that you would want to tell yourself about all the dumb, horrible stuff you went through when you were a kid. Like, hey, eventually you will find people who will accept you that aren't horrible a-holes. They're out there, you know, you just got to find them. And certain people are just not going to be worth your time. And like, I really liked it. It's a really heartfelt and sweet and emotional story. I feel like a lot of the stuff I've read this month was like heartfelt, sweet, emotional, and just a lot of really good ones. I really enjoyed this one. After that one, I read Life Hacks for a Little Alien. And this is a strange book. It's about this girl. Her family's really weird. She feels like she's not from this planet. Her mom seems a little crazy in the head and doesn't really take care of her all that well. She'll be like digging holes in the yard and eating mud and stuff. And the mom and the aunt are just completely ignoring her. The dad comes home and he's like, hey, your daughter's over here eating mud. And the mom's like, oh, okay. And he's like, what the F, dude? Okay. And so he like hoses off the daughter and whatnot. And she kept getting kicked out of schools, but it wouldn't be actually her fault. It would be like other kids told her to do stuff, but then she would never speak up for herself or say anything. Then being sent to like a very strict school where they're having like every other class is physical education. So, and the teachers are all like these horrible bully people. And then she gets kicked out because her one friend climbed up these rickety old scaffoldings and she went to like try and get them down because the teacher basically forced her to go up there to get them down. And then they fell off and then they blamed the kids, even though they told them to go up there. But she didn't say anything again because she's a kid. She doesn't know. They thought she had all these problems. I honestly think throughout this, she was just a normal kid. She just, you know, you're trying to figure stuff out. You don't know what's going on. And then the mom, at some point, there was one time she comes home, the daughter, I think she was maybe 12 at this point. Her mom forgot to pick her up from school. She walked home. It took her like a half hour to walk home by herself. She was kind of scared. Or maybe she was like 8. I don't remember. She was young. She doesn't say anything to her mom about this. She just doesn't say like, hey, you forgot me. And the mom just like completely is like, la-di frickin' da, doesn't even seem to know. And then what's weird too is her mom has packed up like the whole house. And she goes to the kitchen and there's no food. And she's like, what are you doing? The mom thinks the police are out there trying to kill her. So she's trying to get the F out of Dodge. And like the daughter calls her dad and she's like, Dad, there's no squash. He's like, what do you mean there's no? She's like, Mom packed up the whole house and is leaving. And he's like, what? So he's like, I'll be there. I'll be there in like 10 minutes. So he comes and gets her to unpack everything and whatnot. So eventually, our little alien, the main character, she finds out about the Voynich manuscript, which is thought to be possibly an alien manuscript, and no one has ever been able to translate it or knows what it's all about. So she just becomes fascinated with it, and it becomes kind of a lifeline for her. And it's such a weird, quirky story. It is third person narration. So if you don't like that, you might not like this, but there were so many ridiculous things happening, and I never felt like outside the story. I was still in it. You're in it with the characters and the narrator, and I thought it was pretty fantastic. But yeah, like I said, if you don't like third person narration, then probably don't read it because, yeah, I know how that can put people off from a book. But otherwise, I thought it was great. After that, I read a paranormal fiction, The Haunting of Room 904 by Erica T. Worth. The main character is a paranormal investigator, and every job she goes on is a crazy, over the top haunting. It's very entertaining. And then all the hauntings end up being like connected together around this massacre that had happened. And she has to figure out how to set this one spirit free. But then also her sister had passed away a few years prior, and her sister ends up like stuck in this mirror, and she needs to help her to move on from there as well. And like, it's a crazy, wild story. It was very over the top in everything that happened. After that, I read The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This book is a slow burn. It's a very gruesome horror, and it is a historical horror. And this focuses around 2 characters. One is this Pastor Bocarn, and then Good Stab. And Good Stab has a very strange story to tell. And he comes to this pastor's church, and he wants to have confession with him. He wants to tell him his story about who he is and what he's done over the years and to be heard. And so the pastor's like, all right, I will listen with a good heart and you tell me your story. And he's like, you're probably not going to believe it at first, but you will. And the story that unfolds, at least hold on in the story. If you're finding it's very slow and kind of boring in the beginning, wait till you meet the cat man. Once you meet the cat man, and if you're still not starting to get pulled into it, then okay. But give it to the cat man because that's when I kind of got invested in the story and I wanted to hear and see where this would go. It's such a strange tale. It is gruesome and kind of heartbreaking and just it didn't feel like a typical Stephen Graham Jones book to me. But the author is always evolving, right? You try different things with your writing, and I thought this one was pretty great. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, out of all of those, what are my favorites? Well, I think my favorites out of all those was Green Teeth by Molly O'Neill and Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. Those were my two favorites. I've been finding, okay, because I called the Green Teeth of folk horror, so still kind of horror, but I feel like I've been finding a lot of my favorites recently have been like fantasy. I've been reading a lot of fantasy this year. I'm a mood reader, and so sometimes, like, whatever strikes my mood or whatever I'm feeling like, that's kind of what I get into. I have a hard time sticking to TBRs. They feel too restrictive to me, so this year's been more fantasy than horror so far. But I have a lot of horror that I do have lined up. I have like what I would call a loose TBR, and we'll say that that depends on the holds that come in from the library books that I have on hold. So, what was your favorite book or books you've read this month? Let me know down in the comments. Always curious to hear what you're reading. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.